Not everything is always as it appears to be. Auspex lets its users perceive reality on a different level, enhancing their senses beyond the capability of mortals. The powers of Auspex are particularly useful for spies and information brokers, as well as anyone who understands that avoiding surprises helps them survive another night. Greetings, kindred. I am Voivode Mekhet, and welcome back to our World of Darkness. And tonight we're going to be going over some of Mind's Eye Theater's Vampire the Masquerade Laws of the Night, specifically the disciplines. This is a level by level, where we will be going through each individual level of a discipline power that can be found for vampires in World of Darkness games, specifically for live action roleplay, for LARP. Now, these can get a little bit confusing and long-winded, therefore I have provided time codes in the description below so that you can fast track to the information you need for each individual discipline. With that, let's go ahead and get started with the general information that you all need for using disciplines using the Laws of the Night system. When a mortal is embraced and becomes a vampire, they have innate supernatural powers called disciplines. When a vampire feeds on human blood, they learn to refine and temper the resonance of the victims to unlock terrifying and devastating powers of the blood. These powers range from supernatural strength, speed, and resiliency to the ability to subjugate the minds or cloud the perception of enemies and others. Disciplines are rated on a scale from 1 to 5 dots. After character creation, a character must purchase additional dots with XP. Each unique discipline has the following general characteristics. Type. Are the discipline powers mental, social, or physical? Masquerade risk. How dangerous to the masquerade is using a majority of this discipline's powers? Blood resonance. What type of blood must be consumed to learn this discipline? Each power within a discipline has a cost, usually a simple or standard action, or a number of required rouse checks. Each discipline power also has a listed duration. Learning disciplines. Learning a dot from an in-clan discipline requires a downtime action from the vampire, as they find and feed upon a mortal with the correct blood resonance of that discipline. If a vampire seeks to learn a discipline that's not an in-clan, she must drink 1 rouse check's worth of blood from a vampire who possesses that discipline, in or out of clan at any level. She must then spend a downtime action feeding upon a mortal with the correct blood resonance for that discipline. This process must be repeated each time she wishes to learn a dot of an out-of-clan discipline. Learning Oblivion or Blood Sorcery as an out-of-clan discipline is the exception to that rule. In addition to those requirements, the learning vampire must be willingly taught by a vampire who possesses Oblivion or Blood Sorcery as an in-clan discipline. This requires a downtime action to be spent by both the learner and the instructor. Thin blood vampires must possess the vampiric discipline merit prior to learning 1 selected discipline. Selecting powers. Every time a character gains a dot in a discipline, they must choose 1 power from that discipline list. The power chosen must be equal to or less than the new level of dots she possesses in that discipline. Note that choosing a lower level power does not provide a discount on the discipline dot purchase. For example, a Brujah who started the game without any potence wants to learn both Prowess and Soaring Leap from Potence. They purchase Soaring Leap with their first dots for 5 XP, and Prowess with their second dots for 10 XP, requiring a total of 15 XP. Amalgams. Amalgam powers are special powers that require proficiency in more than one discipline. They may be selected instead of standard discipline powers when you purchase a new discipline dot. In order to select an amalgam power, you must also possess the listed number of dots in the prerequisite discipline. Amalgam powers count as belonging to both disciplines for all purposes. Also, as a side note, any amalgam can be purchased by any clan. Unless otherwise stated, the only prerequisite for purchasing an amalgam is having the number of dots in the secondary discipline listed and the experience points to purchase it. Using disciplines. The following rules apply to all discipline use, unless otherwise stated. A discipline power can be used on the same target on subsequent turns, even if the first attempt failed. Multiple instances of the same discipline power do not stack. If a power has a duration and is used multiple times on the same target, the duration resets and begins again, instead of having more time added. Any discipline that has an action cost to activate lasts for 1 hour. A character must be able to see a target clearly to use the power on that target. Line of sight can be enhanced by sensory-based powers, such as heightened senses, but may not be enhanced by technological assistance, such as video cameras. To establish line of sight, the target must be observed with the vampire's own senses. Any power can be ended if the user spends a simple action. Discipline mechanics are written from the point of view of a vampire user. However, if legally possessed by another creature type, consider vampire-specific terms to apply to that user. Partially supernatural creatures, such as ghouls, are considered mortal. If a power has a greater effect on mortals, it will also have a greater effect on ghouls. Other rules and limitations specific to a discipline are listed in the characteristics section of each discipline. A number of discipline powers refer to situational modifiers such as relenting, wound penalties, conditions, and line of sight. For more information and explanation for those terms, see Core Rules Systems on page 83 of Laws of the Night. Combat turn duration. Unless otherwise stated, a power that lasts for multiple turns in combat expires on the same initiative count as initiated, regardless of whether the character who initiated the power is still alive or if their initiative has changed. Gaze and focus. Some disciplines require the target to focus their attention on the user of the power. These powers do not require eye contact, but do require having the attention of the individual you wish to control. Individuals may attempt to find ways to avoid making eye contact, but the powers of the blood are not so easily thwarted. Gaze and focus only requires having the attention of the individual you wish to target. Anyone whose attention is on you is a viable target for powers that require gaze and focus. This includes the following individuals: those who are looking into your eyes, those holding an in-person conversation, not over the phone or video chat with you, those who have physically attacked you or used a mental or social power on you, regardless of the success of such attacks. Gaze and focus gained this way lasts for the remainder of the scene or combat scenario. It is possible for a single person to focus on 2 or more individuals. If supernatural powers are used to make you pay attention to 2 characters at the same time, you might glance back and forth between the 2, or move to a place where you can see both simultaneously. You are also capable of holding the gaze and focus of multiple parties. Transformative powers. Any power that significantly alters a character's physical shape is considered a transformative power. Each of these powers explicitly states that it is transformative. Unless otherwise stated, transformative powers have the following characteristics. Transformative powers last until dawn, or until the user sleeps, is subject to the helpless condition, falls unconscious, or falls into torpor. The user may also spend a simple action to end the transformation early. A character may only use and benefit from one transformative power at a time. If a character attempts to use a transformative power while already being affected by another, the first ends immediately, and the second activates. Transformative powers do not prevent you from using non-transformative powers as long as your current form can reasonably fulfill the requirements of a non-transformative power. When you activate a transformative power, clothing and small personal items disappear. These return when you regain your normal form. A character cannot use physical weapons, guns, swords, etc., while transformed. Conditions are not resolved, nor are wounds and injuries mended or altered when a character utilizes a transformative power. A character with one eye has one fewer eyes in all forms. Obscured characters and out-of-body powers. Some powers allow you to separate your consciousness or senses from your physical body, or to hide your physical form. When extending your consciousness or senses beyond the limits of your physical body, you may do so only as far as the boundaries of your game, or 75 miles, whichever is lower. Whenever you are obscured from mundane observation, or separating your consciousness or senses from your body, hold a closed fist against your shoulder. This signifies you, the player, are not physically present as your character. This gesture should not be used as justification for other players to attempt to detect your presence with supernatural powers. Your storyteller should also be alerted to the location of your actual physical form. If you are able to perceive multiple locations at once, use an assisting storyteller to observe and report from one location. You may also rely on other characters in the scene to relay what happened while you chose to concentrate on one location. Use of such powers does not mean that the other players must pause roleplay while you move back and forth between multiple scenes. Mortals. Some powers have differing effects when targeting mortals. Ghouls and thin-blood vampires without the vampiric resiliency merit are considered mortals for the purpose of discipline effects against them. Fully supernatural creatures such as changelings, mage, and werewolves are not considered mortals. I understand that there is a lot of information to take into that, and what I've stated there are the verbatim, word for word, taken from the book, examples of the general rules for utilizing disciplines when playing in a LARP setting. I hope that was helpful for you, but let's go ahead and move on to the discipline in question. Greetings, Kindred. I want to take a quick break from what we're doing here to discuss the uses of a couple of specific discipline powers from Vampire the Masquerade. Dominate, Compel is a very useful discipline where you can give simple commands to people, such as, you should like this video, or you should subscribe to this channel if you aren't already. Then you've got more interesting powers such as Submerge Directive. Now, a good example of Submerge Directive would be if you know anyone who might like the content created on this channel, you should definitely share the video. So that way, when you think about a friend who might be involved in World of Darkness or Vampire the Masquerade, or just might be interested in the subject, you would be compelled to actually share this video. That's how it would work. Now, another great one is Rationalize. Rationalize would make it so that the uses of compel to like, subscribe, or the use of Submerge Directive to share this video, that's all your idea, and you wouldn't even think that I would be trying to manipulate you mentally. Then there's presence. I also run a Patreon where the members have access to newsletters, the Discord where they can communicate with the rest of the community, and even play in games that I host, and where other storytellers of our world of darkness have access to hosting games too. We could use Summon to bring you to that Patreon. The Our World of Darkness Patreon, specifically, whose link is in the description. Anyway, I'll let you get back to what you were doing, but I just wanted to let you know that you should like, subscribe, and share. And hopefully I'll see you all in the Patreon. Kindred, we are going to be going over the discipline of Auspex, which has been called voyeurism, scrying, and anima visas. It's a pretty interesting power. It's basically psychic awareness and the ability to do things mentally. It's the ESP of Vampire the Masquerade. Specifically, we're going to be going over the Mind's Eye Theater version found in Laws of the Night 5th edition. This power is primarily used by the Hecata, the Malkavians, the Salubri, the Toreador, and the Tremere through natural lineage. However, anybody can learn this with the proper expenditure of downtime actions, having a proper teacher sometimes, drinking the proper blood resonance, and of course, experience traits expended. With that, let's go ahead and get into some of the more important details as far as Auspex goes, because the characteristics of this discipline can help you out in-game if you know exactly what your discipline is capable of. And that first thing would be Auspex versus Obfuscate. These are effectively two sides of the same coin. A vampire with the Auspex power Sense the Unseen can detect an obfuscated character by making a contested challenge of wits plus awareness versus the obfuscated character's wits plus stealth. So that will help you be able to see through that supernatural hiding. An Auspex wielding character is also able to use Auspex versus Oblivion. Detecting the use of Oblivion can be accomplished by using Auspex power Sense the Unseen as well, and successful contested challenge of Wits plus Awareness versus the Oblivion user's Resolve plus Occult. This test only detects the uses of Oblivion powers, such as when a vampire extends their senses with the power Shadow Perspective to perceive the supernatural darkness of Oblivion powers such as Shadow Cloak. An Auspex user must utilize heightened senses, not Sense the Unseen, and succeed in a contested challenge of their Wits plus Investigation versus the Oblivion user's Resolve plus Occult. So what type of power is? It's rather easy to understand that this is a mental power. This is extra sensory perception, or ESP, utilizing vampire abilities to do such things. The masquerade threat also is very low. Unless otherwise stated, Auspex powers never manifest in a way that's visible to the naked eye, so there's not much of a threat in utilizing most Auspex abilities. As with all disciplines, we are going to have to deal with a blood resonance. When you are trying to learn Auspex, you are going to have to drink phlegmatic blood from mortals. Mortals that possess this resonance can be photographers, visual artists, oracles, users of psychoactive drugs, detectives and bounty hunters. Basically anybody who is higher in perception than most. People who have an open mind for things. People who look for things professionally. These are people who have that resonance. So keep that in mind when you are attempting to learn it. So let us get into the level by level of Auspex. Level 1, Heightened Senses. With this power, your mundane observation skills are unmatched, and you can compensate for nearly any lost sense with the ones that remain. This is, in my opinion, the quintessential Auspex power. You are heightening your senses, hence the name Heightened Senses. The cost of this power is free. You do not have to do a rouse check or anything like that. It is just something that your character, when you take a moment of concentration, will allow you to be able to effectively double your ability for sensory perception, your height, your sense of smell, your taste, your tactile senses. The system states heightened senses may be activated reflexively, even outside of your usual initiative order. A character's heightened vision allows them to see completely clearly, even in total darkness. Your heightened sense of hearing allows you to understand sounds too quiet for normal people to hear. You may eavesdrop on any conversation within your line of sight. When physically blinded, your hearing can compensate adequately for your loss of vision. Similarly, if something deafens you, your sense of touch can feel the vibrations made by that sound. Unless otherwise stated, you are immune to the blinded condition when heightened senses is active. Certain powers may impose supernatural penalties to your senses. When trying to overcome this interference, heightened senses is critical. Those powers will dictate what contested pools are used to overcome sensory deprivation. To signify that you are using heightened senses without interrupting roleplay, point your index finger at the sensory body part that you are enhancing, such as your eyes, your ears, your nose. This will allow your storyteller to understand exactly what you're doing if they are in line of sight to see what you are doing. You may have to let them know what is happening. Hopefully you won't have to break scenes, but all characters should just keep in mind that when a character is doing these things, it is for the benefit of roleplay, and don't try to hide what you're doing. Act as if that individual is not able to hear you or see you or anything like that. The duration for heightened senses is until deactivated. It is just that easy to use. Level 1. Sense the Unseen. This power lets you use an otherworldly space to sense truths that would be hidden from most. Your mind cannot be fooled so easily. Sense the Unseen is a power that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. I think it's a great power, I really do, but I've always felt that it was more of a Oblivion plus Auspex mix power. But since we are sitting in a world where it is not, let's go over the exact details. The cost for Sense the Unseen is 1 rouse check. So this power is not exactly as easy to use as Heightened Senses. You have to actively utilize your blood to get it to work. The challenge pool is wits plus awareness versus a variety of things, depending on what the situation is, and we will go over that in the system. Which states, you have the ability to see things that others cannot. You can pierce the supernatural concealment of other vampires, and visually detect the latent energies of supernatural objects. Your senses can even cross the boundaries of the mundane world, allowing you to see the inhabitants of the spiritual world. Anytime you wish to look for a supernaturally hidden creature or object, you must spend a simple action, make a rouse check, and alert the storyteller. To notice the use of some powers, a contested challenge may be made. The power you are trying to observe defines what pool you are testing against. So what that's basically saying is the power that you are trying to observe using Sense the Unseen, if it is able to be observed, will have information in that discipline's system. To notice objects that have been supernaturally enhanced or created with a power, such as warding circles created by blood sorcery or werewolf fetishes, you make a static challenge versus a difficulty of 2 plus the level of the power used to create or enhance the item, which means the difficulty for using that to try to figure out a blood sorcery or trying to figure out some other kind of supernatural thing that was created with a power, the difficulty is 2 plus the power used. So it's always going to be 3 to 7. That is the range when it comes to trying to figure those things out. This power can only detect things normally unable to be seen by mundane eyesight, such as an obfuscated vampire, a magical ward, or a Hekata spying through a shadow with Oblivion powers such as shadow perspective. If you fail a test to notice a supernaturally concealed individual or object, you may not test against the target's supernatural concealment again for the next 5 minutes. To signify that you're using Sense the Unseen without interrupting roleplay, you make a circle with your fingers and your thumb, like this, and you hold it over or in front of one of your eyes. This is just to let people understand that something is happening, to explain why you might have information that you should not necessarily have. The duration of Sense the Unseen is passive, so once you activate it, you just go. Level 2, Panacea. With this power, you can return another's mind to tranquility, giving them the mental strength to press onward and overcome these obstacles. Panacea is an example of a couple of different things. First off, it is an amalgam, meaning that it takes two disciplines to use, two disciplines combining to create the effects of this. For this discipline, you would need the second level of Auspex and the first level of Fortitude. The other thing that this is an example of is that back before 5th edition, there used to be clan-specific disciplines. This was a level of Obeah, which would cause a salubri specifically to be able to ease the minds of those around them. But now anyone with Auspex and Fortitude can learn that. Through lineage, in other words, what clans can learn this? The only vampire clans that have access to both Fortitude and Auspex are going to be the Salubri, which is where this power came from, or the Hekata. And where I don't necessarily believe in giving my point of view of how certain things can be played or example of characters within the level-by-level setting. The idea of a Hekata who has this and now sees themselves as master of life and death is just massively fun to me. The cost of this power is a single rouse check. And the challenge pool is Composure plus Medicine versus a difficulty of 2. The system states, spend your standard action touching a target, either living or undead, which may require a grapple check if the target is unwilling. Make 1 rouse check and a static challenge using Composure plus Medicine versus the difficulty of 2. If successful, you can choose one of the following effects. Calm a mortal who is experiencing a heightened emotional state. This includes removing the frightened condition from a mortal. Restore 1 point of willpower to the target. Or resolve the distracted, staggered, or weakened conditions. Panacea may not be used on yourself. If the user of Panacea targets more than 1 different character a night, they lose 1 willpower each time they attempt an additional target. This willpower may only be regained by resting. The user may use Panacea on their initial target or any subsequent targets that they've already lost willpower for to attempt as many times as they wish for the cost of a single rouse check without the fear of having more willpower drained. So for each target you use this on after the first, you lose a willpower. But it is only for that one time that you've used it. And you can constantly use it on those targets over and over again without having the fear of losing more willpower. So this is definitely a resource management situation. The duration of Panacea is non-applicable. It is effectively active as soon as you let it go, depending on how many rouse checks you decide to do. Level 2, Premonition. You have learned to tune your mind into the occult waves of the universe and listen to the hints fate has decided to share with you. Premonition in Mind's Eye Theater is so different from that of Tabletop because it is a completely passive discipline. The cost is 100% free, and the storyteller is the one who decides when this needs to be used, which means storytellers do not forget your Premonition users. If they've spent XP on this, they are in their right to complain if you never use this. In my opinion, find out who has Premonition in your game and utilize them at least once a night. The system states Premonition is always active. Whenever the storyteller deems it appropriate, they may choose to give you a hint to aid you in some way. This could be a clue to progress the plot, a warning about your proposed plan, or something similar. This hint manifests as a sudden vision in your mind. If multiple people possess this power, are all involved in the same scene, this vision may even be shared between all those present. Now, in addition, the players do get small flashes of insight from time to time, and the way that this is expressed through gameplay is that once per night, the player can use a simple action at any time, even before their initiative, by sacrificing their standard action for that round. Which means you can literally go, I am not comfortable with what's going on, I am going to exit stage left, I am going to prep my weapon, something is going to happen. You are able to act first to make it so that you are ahead of the game. Even it means that you have now sacrificed your ability to do something that would require a test. That little simple action can be a lifesaver in those situations. The duration for Premonition is passive. And I am going to stress to the storytellers one more time, do not forget your Premonition users. They do deserve to have their power acknowledged. Level 2, Scry the Soul. A good vantage point is all you need to find a target in a room. And a simple scan is enough to learn secrets a target is unwilling or unable to say. Scry the Soul used to be, in earlier editions, known as Aura Perception. This version is a little bit better, in my opinion, because the questions that you used to be able to ask with with Aura Perception, they were just, I don't know, they were too loose and they were too definite at the same time, such as, was the last thing that you said a lie? That's not really how the mentality works. I like this updated version. The cost of Scry the Soul is 1 rouse check, and the challenge pool is intelligence plus insight versus the composure plus subterfuge of the target. The system states, target a character within your line of sight and spend a standard action, and make a contested challenge. If you succeed, your target must truthfully answer 2 of the following questions. Now, in order to gain the answer of additional questions, you have to utilize Scry the Soul again. So, the questions are, what is your emotional state? This can come in handy to find out how nervous a person is, if they are going to be actively aggressive, if you confront them. This does open the door for many benefits. What is the resonance of your blood? This can be helpful in finding individuals that you need to feed on. If you want to learn a specific discipline, you need to know what blood resonance there are, and this is a quick and easy way of doing that. Now, in addition, if you use this power on a vampire, it will reveal the resonance that that person last fed on, which could help out in specific investigations. It is rather niche, but it is definitely useful. What is your creature type? Vampire, werewolf, ghoul, etc. This will help you identify what something is. Now, as a storyteller, I am always story comes first, and depending on the age of a character, I might say, oh, you don't even know what that thing is, until they do, in which case the character has grown, but mechanically speaking, they should know what you're looking at. The next one is, are you under the influence of a supernatural power? This question does not reveal the specific power influencing the character, only whether the character is under the influence of a supernatural power with a duration that is not passive or immediate. A good example of this would be if somebody has been put underneath the dominate power of Submerge Directive. Until that directive has been lived out, you can tell that they are under dominate in some fashion, or that it's become active, such as when this person enters the room, assassinate them. That right there, when the would-be sleeper agent goes to attack, if they're pounced on and stopped, and you use Scry the Soul, you'd be able to tell that there is something happening to them that might be against their will. The last question is, have you committed diablerie in the last year? The effects of diablerie, utilizing this power, where you can see the black veins inside their soul, that fades over the course of a year. Now, if used against a target that is currently possessed by another character's essence, such as the animalism power subsume the spirit, or a mortal who is under the effects of the Auspex power possession, the answer to what is your creature type is the actual creature of the physical form in the entity that you see. You do not see who is controlling them. However, if the second question is, are you under the influence of a supernatural power, this would reveal the influence of the controlling character, but not necessarily the power being used as described above. I really hope that makes sense to everybody. Alternately, you can use this power to scan a room looking for a mortal with a specific blood resonance or a supernatural creature of a specific type. For example, you may wish to search for vampires in a crowd of people, or a mortal possessing the caloric blood resonance. To scan the room, you have to declare to the storyteller what type of creature type or blood resonance you are looking for and perform the static challenge. The difficulty of the static challenge depends on how many people are in the search area. It's generally marked down in groups of 25. A group of 25 people would be a difficulty of 2. For each additional 25 people, it's going to go up by 2. So at that point, if you're looking at 75 people in a room, your difficulty is going to be 6. If you succeed, you identify everyone in the room that meets the such criteria. I want to point that out, and I want to stress that you are looking for something specific. If there's a werewolf hidden in a club, but you happen to be looking for a resonance, you're not going to notice that werewolf because your mind is looking for the one thing. Now, there are exceptions to this in the way of how a story should be run, and throwing something at someone who is utilizing Scry the Soul as a storyteller is a great way to push plotline. That's just my advice that I'm throwing out to you guys. The duration on this is not really applicable because it has something to do with more of the test being used than the time put into it. Level 3, Collective Cognizance. You've mastered the art of noticing the tiny shifts in energy when someone, including yourself, resists a power. Sometimes you can catch a successful use if you're paying enough attention. Collective Cognizance is fun. I have never seen a power like this until this edition, and it does bring into some very interesting roleplay opportunities. The cost is free. It's just active. Once you buy it, you can use it, and there's no cost to activate. There is a challenge pool sometimes, and I know that sounds weird, but it really is a situational bias. There is either a none in challenge pool, or it is a wits plus awareness versus composure plus subterfuge. Now let's clear that up with a look at the system. Collective Cognizance is always active. You automatically notice failed mental and social attacks without a test. Now, there is more information in the Standard Laws Pocket Guide, which is on page 95. Mental and social attacks without a test. If you notice that somebody in the room that you're with failed their test, your character knows they failed the test. That's really the best way of looking at it, which also means that you know that they attempted a test, maybe in an area that they shouldn't. You're not really allowed to use disciplines in a lot of Elysium settings and things like that, but it really depends on the setting, doesn't it? Now, in addition, you may even notice the successful use of a mental or social power, even if there's no visual or auditory phenomena associated with its use. If you are the power's target, so if somebody is using a power on you, you are looking at someone who successfully uses the power, or you are looking at the power's target, so the other victim, even if it's not you, you may make an opposed challenge using wits plus awareness versus the composure plus subterfuge to determine if you noticed what happened. So again, I'm going to state this again. If somebody is using a power on you, you are looking at someone else who is either using or not using the power, and they've won, you can throw that wits plus awareness versus their composure plus subterfuge. I'm sorry for being repetitive, I just really want to beat into how this thing works. If the source of the supernatural power isn't within line of sight, characters who notice the power will know the general direction from where it came from. I really love the whole concept of that, because it kind of makes it sound like your senses, your ability to have a more psychic awareness lets you see kind of like a radiance of where the power may be coming from. Maybe it's a fog, maybe it's a silver cord or something that goes across the room, or a twine. There's really no telling how you, the storyteller, wants to define this, but you can tell where it's coming from. Now, the duration is passive, and again, I state this. Once you buy it, it is always active. So just keep that in mind. It's a lot of fun. I personally like passive powers, because I just like to get into the roleplay aspect of this game. Level 3, share the senses. Your observations of another become so thorough that you're literally able to experience your target's senses as they experience them. This is a very interesting power. Share the Senses has so many fun uses, primarily for spying on people, but you could also use this in coterie. Like, this is the kind of thing that you could utilize to help investigations, if used properly, or spying on someone. You send someone in, instead of actually having a wire on them, you're actually listening and experiencing everything that they are through their own senses. The cost of this power is a single rouse check, and the challenge is resolve plus awareness versus composure plus awareness. The system states, target a character within your line of sight, spend a standard action, and make a contested challenge. If you succeed, you can ride the senses of your target for up to 1 hour. You hear, smell, see, and feel exactly as they do. Your target remains unaware of your intrusion, but others may notice through Scry's soul. If your target is alerted to your presence, they may attempt to push you out by making a contested challenge using their resolve plus awareness versus your composure plus awareness. If you are successfully separated, you may not target the same character with share the centers for the remainder of the night. At that point, they kind of have like a psychic shield up so that they're not able to be infiltrated so easily. While share the senses is active, you can still move, act normally, and use your own senses as well. That's got to be a lot of mental stress, being able to do both like that. The duration of this power lasts 1 hour. I am a huge fan. I like the idea of being able to do this. It's massively intrusive, but we are kind of playing monsters here, aren't we? Level 4, Unveil the Edifice. You can extend your senses beyond your immediate surroundings, allowing you to gain a sense of the building that you are in and its inhabitants. Unveil the Edifice feels to me like it was taken from the old Gargoyle clan from earlier editions. Maybe we'll see them someday in the future, but most of the time I haven't really seen any of them with Auspex. This power costs 1 rouse check to utilize, and it's just a really fun power altogether. The system states that once you make a rouse check and spend a full turn in concentration while you're inside of a building, afterwards, you get a complete sense of the building's layout and inhabitants at the moment. You receive accurate information about the building's designs, where each room is, whether or not there are any secret passageways or hidden chambers, and so forth. Your senses extend a maximum of 3 stories up and 3 stories below from the floor that you currently occupy. In my opinion, that tells me that you get 7 stories worth of information. The 3 above you, the 3 below you, and the 1 that you're on. I could very well be misreading that or misunderstanding. I know that I'm being watched like a hawk from World of Darkness people, so if anybody who is official has anything else to say about that, please put that in the comments below so that we can have a nice conversation. Are you blind to the floor that you're on? That's a question I'd actually like to have answered. Now, you also learn the location and approximate number of all the inhabitants in the building unless they are supernaturally concealed, which means that this still does not let you break Obfuscate when looking for people, which is a really cool additive. You can still be surprised, which means this is not a massively OP discipline. The duration for Unveil the Edifice is until you leave that building, which is pretty interesting. Personally, I think that means per night. So if you walk into a building and stay there, when you leave the building, obviously, is when that's going to cut off. But I also think that if you are havening in that building, when you fall asleep, I don't think that still lets you keep doing it. I think this is something you'd have to activate every night that you stay in the building. Again, if I'm wrong, World of Darkness, whoever wants to say anything to me about me being wrong, put it in the comments. Level 4, Spirit's Touch. With this power, you can touch something inanimate and see visions of the strongest spiritual residue from an interaction with this item. Spirit's Touch has always been fun, and I think it's been in every edition of Vampire the Masquerade in one form or another. It was even in the Vampire the Masquerade television show Kindred the Embrace, where they tried to figure out who killed someone, and they utilized the victim's ring to find out who the murderer was. It's just a very useful item for investigations. So the cost for this power is 1 rouse check. And then the challenge pool is going to be intelligence plus investigation. The system states you can only use this power on objects. For the purpose of this power, inanimate corpses, including the corpses of supernatural creatures and the remains of destroyed vampires, count as objects and may be targeted by Spirit's Touch. Vampires who have not met final death do not count as corpses. The description of this discipline is going to say corpses a lot, and I will do my best to stifle the laughter, but with the way that it's used, I lose myself sometimes when reading this, because they're just, I don't know, corpses seem to be a very heavy thing when it came to this power for some reason. So to utilize this power, you spend a standard action, make 1 rouse check, and touch an object. To collect a psychic impression, touch the object with your bare skin. You then enter a shallow trance and glean information from the spiritual residue on the objects. You are only marginally aware of your surroundings while using Spirit's Touch, although a loud noise or a jarring physical sensation will break the trance in an instant. Spirit's Touch works in the following 3 ways, and this is where I usually end up laughing. If the object is a corpse, your character receives a vision of the last few moments of the target's life, including the killer's face if the victim saw her. If the killer was using supernatural means, such as Mask of 1,000 Faces to hide their true identity, Spirit's Touch reveals the fake visage and not the true face. If the object is not a corpse, you can determine the last person who handled the objects, not including yourself. If the object is not a corpse, you can discover the most memorable event concerning the object. This may be its creation, its use in a murder, or something else. Merely being present for a memorable event does not reveal anything. The object must have been involved in the event to remember it. to discover additional interactions, such as an older handler of the item, or another memorable event. You must succeed in an intelligence plus investigation challenge versus a difficulty of 3 while maintaining your hold on the item. These challenges do not cost additional actions or rouse checks. This difficulty increases by 1 for each additional interaction trying to be discovered. Once you have failed one of these tests, you may not test again for an hour. These images come from a 360-degree point of view, extending outward from the objects or corpse. Regardless of whether the object is a corpse, you also sense deep emotions relevant to the psychic images you receive. The visions received by the use of this power are seldom clear or detailed. They register more like a psychic snapshot. They are visually only and lack any sounds, smells, or tactile stimuli. Still, a clever vampire can learn a great deal from these glimpses. Unlike people, objects do not have a mind and cannot be fooled by Obfuscate. When using Spirit's Touch on an object, not a corpse. Powers such as Unseen Passage and Mask of 1,000 Faces do not obscure interactions with objects. The true visage of characters employing these powers is left behind, unless the character is using the Obfuscate power of Soul Mask or the Oblivion ceremony Alone in the Dark. Unless a character touches an item, using one of these two powers, the psychic impression they leave is always of their true self, even if disguised in any other way. And let's just get this over with. The duration is passive. I love Scry the Soul, and the details they put in that, oh my god. I love the fact also it's just like corpse, corpse, corpse. Not a corpse, maybe a corpse. Is that a corpse? Is that a corpse? I think it's very funny, but it's also very true that you cannot use this power on a torpid vampire or anything like that. Level 5, Clairvoyance. Your mind is powerful enough, and you've learned how to watch someone or something without needing to move. Clairvoyance is a very interesting power because it's effectively the 5th edition version of astral projection. It allows you to leave your body, but in this version, it also means that your senses are out there, but you still have access to your standard existence. So where there were some different benefits for astral projection, this one right here gives you even more abilities when it means that you still have access to your existence itself. The cost of Clairvoyance is 1 rouse check, and the system pool is Intelligence plus Investigation versus the Resolve plus Composure of the subject. System states, your perception splits, allowing you to focus on a single faraway person, place, or object without losing the ability to perceive your current surroundings. You may target a character, an item, or a location you have seen in person in the last 90 days with Clairvoyance. So, 3 months worth of time on this one before you have to reestablish an actual physical connection, providing that the target is still within the game's local area of play, which is typically the city or 75 miles in all directions, whichever is smaller. You spend a standard action, you make a rouse check. No challenge is required to observe a location or an object. If you are using Clairvoyance on a supernatural creature or on an object in the possession of a supernatural creature, you must make an opposed challenge against the target or the individual controlling the object. If successful, you can see, hear, and otherwise sense the area around the target as though you were in their presence. This challenge does not alert the other character that they are being observed. If you use Clairvoyance to spy on a character whose consciousness and physical body are in two different locations, such as when your target is using the possession power, you always perceive their consciousness, not their physical form. You may only use heightened senses and sense the unseen through clairvoyance. A character's heightened senses would allow them to smell a candle or see in a poorly lit room through clairvoyance. Sense the unseen could detect the use of obfuscated individuals or hallucinations. You may maintain this power at the conclusion of the duration by making another rouse check. And that duration is going to be 30 minutes, plus another 30 minutes for each additional rouse check. Like I said, I am a massive fan of how clairvoyance works here. This is a good way to keep an eye on your haven or make sure that something special to you is always being watched. This is just a very fun role play, investigative power that can, I don't know, it seems like it would be very fun to play a paranoia character with this kind of thing. Level 5, Possession. You've learned to project your consciousness along with your skills in command. With this power, you are able to take over the minds of another, using their body as if it was your own. Possession is a lot of fun. I want to just put that out there, but it is also one of the darker, more messed up powers out there. It is also an example of an amalgam. It is Auspex 5, but you have to have at least the 3rd level of Dominate to have this, which means the only clan I can think of off the top of my head who might be able to have this power naturally is Clan Malkavian, which is so interesting because the only type of media I've ever seen where possession was used was a Ventru, where Prince LaCroix used it on one of his security team in the towards the end of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Such an interesting power, though. I love it. You literally take over somebody's body. The cost to do this is 1 rouse check, and you gain 1 stain, because it is such a messed up thing to do. The challenge pool is Resolve plus Intimidation versus the Resolve plus Wits of the victim. To use Possession, use your standard action to stare into the eyes of the subject. This power will not work on blind subjects, or subjects who cannot see your eyes. This is a visually based power. I guess it's the eyes are the windows of the soul sort of thing. Your target must be a non-supernatural mortal or a ghoul who is 3 steps bloodbound to you, which means that you cannot use this on other individuals' ghouls. Make a rouse check and make an opposed challenge. If successful, your consciousness is transferred into your target's body, and their mind is rendered into a fugue-like state. In my mind, what that tells me is they may remember small glimpses of what you did, and where they will feel completely out of control of their own body. They may not exactly understand what's going on, but it is something that might pop up in their memory from time to time. While using Possession, your character's mind focuses entirely on controlling the body that they have inhabited. The vampire has no innate sense of anything occurring with their native physical form. The character's original body falls into torpor. That lasts until the duration of this power is over. If the possessing vampire's body takes any amount of damage, the possession ends immediately and the vampire awakens. While possessing a mortal, the controlling vampire may use any Auspex, Presence, and Dominate powers that they know through the mortal. If possessing a ghoul, they may also use any Potence, Celerity, Fortitude, or Protean powers the ghoul may have. In both instances, amalgam powers are eligible to be used as long as the second discipline is one of the eligible disciplines to be used during possession. Which means that if you have either Auspex, Presence, or Dominate, and the ghoul has Celerity, Fortitude, or Protean, any amalgams between those 6 disciplines can be utilized if possessed by you. You have to have the mentals. The ghoul has to have the physicals. The vampire maintains their attributes and skills for both mentals and social challenges as well, but they must use the physical attributes and skills of those they possess. So there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve here while you're trying to utilize somebody else's body and their skills. A vampire using possession must still rouse their blood to empower any disciplines that they may have to access. However, they may not rouse blood for any other purpose. In addition, they are still susceptible to frenzy while possessing a mortal. If the host body takes aggravated damage, the controlling vampire must make a static challenge using their resolve plus intimidation versus a difficulty of 3 plus the damage taken to stay in control of the body. If the host body dies during the use of possession, the power ends and the controlling vampire loses 3 points of willpower. If the controlling vampire does not have 3 points in willpower to spend, they immediately fall into torpor. Possession lasts until dawn, unless the user wishes to extend the effects. In order to do so, they must make a test to stay awake as normal. Finally, possession is a profoundly violating experience. The use of possession causes the user to gain a stain. Depending on the actions committed during the use of possession, the storyteller may choose to award additional stains. Thin blood vampires cannot be targeted with this power. That is something that I'm very excited to see, because there's always that question, is a thin blood more of a human? More of a vampire? And this one, in this example, the thin blood is more of a vampire. You are unable to possess a thin blood. The duration, as I had stated before, is until ended or until dawn unless extended. This is just a fun, nasty, dirty little power, and I'm a huge fan. Level 5, Telepathy. With this power, you have learned to reach into someone's mind and share their thoughts, giving or taking information in the most accurate way possible. Personally, out of all the higher level Auspex levels, Telepathy is probably my favorite. I think it comes in use. I think this is great for coteries. I think it's great for individuals. Like, there's just so much you can do with Telepathy. The cost is 1 rouse check. And the challenge pool is resolve plus awareness versus the wits plus subterfuge of the target. The system states telepathy provides 2 abilities: the ability to communicate telepathically and the ability to draw information from the mind of another. Either use requires a standard action and a rouse check. If the target is mortal or willing, no challenge is required. So you can use this on other vampires as long as they are willing. If they are not mortal and are unwilling, make a contested challenge. Communicating telepathically allows the character and their target to send and receive mental messages and simple images. You may use this mode of telepathy on other characters that you have met who are in the local play area. Again, 75 miles distance or within the city itself, whichever is smaller. Line of sight is not required, and when communicating with a willing target, a single use of telepathy lasts an hour and allows a character to communicate freely. This mode of telepathy may be extended by another hour for 1 rouse check. A character can maintain telepathic links to a number of willing characters equal to their dots in composure. When communicating with an unwilling target, you may send 1 image and a brief message that would take less than 10 seconds to say to a target. I do like the addition of you can have up to your dots in composure, which means if you are maxed out in composure, you could very well have a 6-way conversation through telepathy. This would allow coteries to stay in contact with each other. And there's really nothing in here that says that you can't effectively leapfrog into these things. Like if multiple people in a group have telepathy, they're all picking up the same thoughts, so there's no reason why you can't effectively like daisy chain telepathy to get more and more people involved in this. If a willing character becomes unwilling during a telepathic session, a character using telepathy must immediately succeed in an opposed challenge using telepathy test pool or be ejected from the now unwilling character's mind. A character may also choose to become willing at any time during the resolution of telepathy. So it is very easy to just knock people completely out of the group if need be. Now, alternately, your character may pull one image or a specific piece of information out of the mind of an unwilling target within their line of sight. The information that you gain in this way must truthfully answer one of the following questions, and that is the user of telepathy's choice on which question is answered. And those questions are, what are you currently thinking about? What does the person or thing that you just described look like? Where is the person or object you were just talking about located? Do you like or dislike the person that you're currently talking to? What are you planning to do for the next few minutes? Now, obviously, these questions can only be answered truthfully as far as the person knows, such as where is the person or object you're talking about located? If things are being moved around, they only know the last bit of information that they have. If you target a character who happens to be possessed by another character, such as through use of the powers subsume the spirit or possession, your telepathy links with the controlling mind, while the possessed mind remains dormant and unreachable. So again, if somebody's using subsume the spirit or possession, you are going to get that possessing mind, not the original vessel's mind. The duration is 1 hour on a willing target or 1 turn on an unwilling target. As you can see, telepathy is just dirty sometimes. It has such great uses, but you can pull information out of people's heads. You can get PIN numbers. You can find out hidden information. This right here, dominate cannot be used for interrogations, but telepathy can. But only the person who is utilizing it, and possibly the people they are connected to through telepathy, can really get the true answer that the telepathy user is saying. Level 5. Unburdening the Bestial Soul. You have learned to lift some weight off another's shoulders. As you help wipe clean some of their tarnish, you share your wisdom and help them make it on their own. Unburdening the Bestial Soul is another one of those powers that originally came from the old edition power of Obeah, which was a Salubri-specific discipline. But now, this is an amalgam of Auspex level 5 and Dominate level 3, which means anybody who has Auspex level 5 and Dominate level 3, as long as they have the prerequisite, because yes, this is a discipline that means that you have to have a different discipline also to use it, which is Panacea, can have this. Which means, and I know we're jumping all over the place with this, the prerequisite for this is that you have to have Dominate, Fortitude, and Auspex to be able to use this. The only clan that specifically comes with those 3 disciplines naturally are going to be Clan Salubri, which is reflective of the origin of where this came from. However, anybody who happens to get those 3 disciplines could very well utilize this. The cost of unburdening the Bestial Soul is going to be 2 rouse checks and you gain 1 stain. But you don't gain a stain for the reason that you might think when you first hear about that cost. The system states, to use Unburdening the Bestial Soul, you and your target must spend 10 minutes in seclusion with each other. During this time, you must share your moral serenity, and how the target can protect themselves against the repercussions of bestial urges. After this 10 minutes elapses, if the target is willing, you make 2 rouse checks and gain a stain, which cannot be prevented in any way. Your target then immediately removes 1 stain. If they have no stains remaining after that reduction, they gain a psychological shield that prevents the next stain that they would get in the same night. If, after removing that 1 stain, they still have 1 more stain, they can remove the second stain, but they do not get that psychological shield. So basically, what I just said is you spend 10 minutes in a therapy session with the person who is having a hard time, who has gained stains, and you take one of their stains onto yourself. And if they don't have any more stains after that, they gain literally like a psychic barrier between gaining another stain. If they have another stain, they lose the second one. But you gain a stain not because you did anything wrong, but you relieved them of it. You took it from them. Their sins are now your sins. And that's just so salubri. I actually very much love this power. Now, alternatively, instead of removing stains, the user of Unburdening the Bestial Soul may permanently restore 1 point of lost humanity to a target vampire who has a lower humanity score than the user. So if you have a 6 and they have a 5, you can restore humanity. This humanity gain does not cost experience points whatsoever. It is a free point in humanity except for what you have already put into this power. A vampire may only regain 1 humanity in this way ever. Once. Just it only works 1 time. The humanity restored must be one that the character has lost either during gameplay or character creation, such as when you're choosing a predator type. Like the alley cat, you sacrifice a humanity at the beginning of that. So at character creation, I'm sorry, we're going to go into some detail on this one because it's kind of interesting. At character creation, characters start with a humanity of 7. If you take the predator type alley cat, you lose a humanity. So that means that sometime in their lifetime as a kindred, that vampire has lost a humanity due to despicable acts that they had done. A person using a kindred using Unburdening the Bestial Soul can restore this lost humanity. Now, if you come in with a 7 and the person who's using this power has 8 humanity, they cannot bring you up past what you had at character creation. So basically the max to recover humanity is only up to 7, and you have to do the rest of the work if you want anything higher than that. For the rest of the session, the target maintains a sympathetic bond to you after utilizing Unburdening the Bestial Soul. Any dominate powers that you use no longer require gaze and focus, and when the power expires at the end of the night, any unused psychological shields from using this power are then lost. So once the sun rises, that psychological shield is over and you're starting from square one. Each time per night that the user of Unburdening the Bestial Soul targets an additional character, beyond the first use with this power, they lose a willpower point and gain a stain per additional target. This willpower cannot be restored without first resting. The user can utilize Panacea on their initial target or any other subsequent targets that they've already lost the willpower for and taken the stain for as many times as they wish. A character who has gained stains from Unburdening the Bestial Soul cannot have those stains removed by any other character's use of the same power. So in other words, you cannot help someone out using Unburdening the Bestial Soul and then have somebody else come up and utilize the same power to fix the situation that you've put yourself in. This stain is removed only by going through the standard actions of removing a stain at the end of the night. The duration for this power is a game session. So again, you start at square one when this is all over. I really love Unburdening the Bestial Soul. I understand that it is a massive mouthful, and it's kind of a niche discipline when you really think about it. You're going to have to go out of your way to learn a lot of things to be able to gain this, which is why it's primarily used by the Salubri in the game. But I will again state that it is accessible to anybody who has Auspex, Fortitude, and Dominate, which are the 3 disciplines that Clan Salubri typically have access to. So we have just gone over Auspex, and it is a lot to take in, and I know it. But it's worth learning if you're going to use it. It's actually a really, really good discipline. And when you utilize mental powers in a game, you are really making kind of a statement about how your character is going to be utilized. If you stop and think about it, the Hecata, the Malkavians, the Salubri, the Toreador, and the Tremere have access to these amazing powers of psychic virility. And Auspex is just a lot of fun. So we've just covered a discipline in level by level. And this is everything that is found in Laws of the Night. So as other books come out, those disciplines will be found in the other playlists for those other books. But I do want to remind you that the reason why we are doing this is a quick check reference. If you need to find something or have somebody else basically speaking to help you grasp what they're talking about with these powers, because it can be a lot of information. Keep in mind that there are time codes in the description of this video so that you can get to the specific information that you need for the individual discipline. I am Voivode Mekhet. This is Our World of Darkness, and thank you for joining me into this deep dive, level by level look in a Mind's Eye Theater Vampire the Masquerade Laws of the Night discipline. Good evening.